അല്ല ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത് അല്ല സ്ട്രീമിംഗ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. ലൈവ് കയറാൻ പറ്റണ്ടോന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. ലൈവ് ആണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇതിൽ വരുന്ന സാധനങ്ങൾ മുഴുവൻ അത് കേൾക്കണ്ടേ? നമ്മളിപ്പോ ഒരു കാര്യം സംസാരിക്കാണ്, ഡൗട്ട് പറയാണ് ആണെന്ന്. എന്നാലും ആര് കേട്ടാലും ഇത് കേൾക്കണ്ടേ നമ്മൾ സംസാരിക്കണൊക്കെ? സാറേ അതല്ല സാറേ, ഇവിടെ പറയണ കേട്ടില്ലെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ ഇവിടെ പറയണ കേൾക്കണ്ടേ ആൾക്കാര്? നമ്മളിപ്പോ ഒരു ഡൗട്ട് ചോദിക്കുകയാണ്. കുറച്ച് താമസം ആരും കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല. അത് മാത്രമേ കേൾക്കൂ. ഹലോ 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 അത് ഞാൻ വന്നിട്ട് അന്ന് എന്തൊക്കെ ചെയ്തിട്ടാ കിട്ടിയത്? അതിന് ചെയ്യുന്ന കോൺഫ്ലിക്ട് ഉണ്ട്. ഹലോ 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 ഒന്നും വരുന്നില്ല. നേരത്തെ ജസ്റ്റ് ഹലോ 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 ചെക്ക് ഹലോ ചെക്ക് ഹലോ 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 ചെക്ക് ചെക്ക് ഹലോ ചെക്ക് ഹലോ 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 അല്ല ഹലോ 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 ഇല്ല
Hello. 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 Check. Hello. Check. Hello. Hello.
Hello? Hello? Hello, hello? Dr.C.A.Tomy, Vishma SD, Manoj Kumar.
They are just
Okay.
yes.
Good morning, Dr. Tommy.
So if you are keeping it further close, you have to just
Number of articles in various of philosophy, Kerala University, and this program, and all of you gathered online and offline for the Department of Philosophy of Kerala University, and this webinar, and all of you gathered here online and offline. I extend a hearty welcome to all, and thank you.
The philosophy of Davidson though developed out of the empiricist tradition, is an attempt to reject it. Davidson was much influenced by Quine, as he was by Carnot, to central traditional view of philosophy. It is interesting to see Quine's example of the word gavagai uttered by a native speaker upon seeing a rabbit. However, David is conceptual scheme and empirical content. Conceptual schemes are the systems of categories that tried. He failed to
have got students for PhDs. Dr. Lashmi has already oriented into statements about experience. So, the reduction now when logical. So this is basically a kind of verification that takes place when we observe certain things and we have to derive certain consequences, certain empirical consequences from the theory or from those statements, and as a result of which the original statement get verified. Now some without dogmas. So in a certain sense, if you look at the history of empiricism, it is any kinds of logical positivism. We find analytic synthetic distinction and the verify, of course, these dogmas, and he is defending a version of empiricism without dogmas. Now, what is Davidson's problem in this? And he says, with these two dogmas which we have already considered, between scheme and content, and that again empiricism assumes, and that is true even about Quine's what's left in empiricism. Okay, this is his position, and modern empiricist, and I consider it the empiricism starting with talking about Hume, not about the logical empiricist. The Hume would say the world of physical objects, world and the physical objects are psychological construct. They are constructed out of what? Constructed out of impressions, nothing else. And constructed logical construction. By logical construction, what we mean is that we are using the principles of logic, not psychological principles, but tenets of classical empiricism. This is reductionism. Reductionism we have already spoken in various ways, but any statement about reality can convert into a statement that can be directly verified, or a set of statements that can be directly verified. Now, the next tenet or feature of the classical empiricism is analytic synthetic distinction. Now, of course, we have already seen, most of us know what analytic synthetic distinction is. The truth value of the statement is dependent upon two factors. What are these two factors? One is linguistic factor, meaning of linguistic expressions, and second is non-linguistic factor, which may be expressed by various things. A non-linguistic factor, then immediately there's a possibility. There could be a statement whose truth value is dependent merely upon the language alone, called synthetic statement, and analytic statements are statements which can be held true irrespective of the way the world is. So the analytic statements do not have any factual content. They become true in virtue of the meaning of the linguistic expressions. Now, it is very clear what a scheme content dualism means. Reductionist empiricism or classical empiricism is alternative ways of organizing the content or reality, or alternative ways of constructing the world are called conceptual schemes. Now once we say that there are various ways of organizing, naturally we are committed to plurality of conceptual schemes. There are various conceptual schemes, and then the question arises, we are going to speak about reality. We have to speak from the point of view of difference from one conceptual scheme to other is the failure or difficulty of translation. That means how do we identify that there is different? Now, According to Davidson, it is a scheme-content dualism that makes it possible to compare and contrast conceptual scheme for their differences. So scheme-content dualism is being presupposed. That is why we can speak about two different conceptual scheme. Okay. So, or more than one conceptual scheme. And so once content is separated from the scheme, and then once we grant a plurality of the conceptual scheme, and content is considered to be neutral and fall outside the conceptual scheme, yet the conceptual scheme is related to, so that if there is neutral content and if there is a relation to the content is common, there cannot be failure of translation is invariable and the content is neutral, then there cannot be failure of translation. Untranslatability, and that is the evidence of differences among the conceptual scheme. The failure differences among the conceptual scheme, we need to identify, we need to speak about or point out Davidson's argument against scheme content dualism, or in the reductionist empiricism. This is the next point or next topic that we want to discuss. Now, so his point is basically the title of this slide, why scheme content dualism is not defensible. So his argument is that the scheme about scheme is an organizing system. And what is content? Content is something waiting to be organized. So he puts it in this fashion: dualism of scheme and content, of organizing, because we cannot make sense of organization of a single object. So he is playing on this notion of organizing. So his catch word here is organizing system or ways of organizing. So we have to pay attention to the term organizing. Now, when we are going to organize, can we organize? Single is conceived as a plurality of individual objects. So, in other words, if at all conceptual schemes are, so now once plurality of terms, color terms are supposed to be expressing extension predicate. When I speak of green, the term green or green is true of would be called as extension. So that we can speak about scheme that is quite alien to ours, then maybe translation would be impossible, not impossible in the sense it is indeterminate, but in a certain sense, Davidson is saying such a language is not possible. Then you have to assume plurality of objects. So since the reductionists must assume a plurality to get organized, they must grant that language has got differential apparatus. So one is predicates, extension predicates, as we have already spoken. Then there are variables. Variables in ordinary language, the variables are language. So all these languages, or perhaps any predicates at all. So there is already we have spoken about the extension predicates. So each language will have extension predicate, but that doesn't mean that both the terms should pick up the same different languages. Now we can make the differences in extension clear only in relation to an ontology common to two languages. So if at all we have to speak, there's a difference between them, there must be a common ground. So Davidson puts it as follows: what enables us to make this point in particular cases is an ontology common to two languages with the concepts that individuate the same object. So the objects are the same, but so this assumption about the plurality of object is systematically hidden by the talk. All right. Okay, so now let us principle. It presupposes a certain kind of plurality, and if you are going to speak about a plurality, of course there are certain kind of common elements between the languages, and if there are common element, only then we can speak about differences. So that is as Quine has perhaps put it. So that's some of the features of non-reductionist empiricism. So this is, we know now. The third is physical objects. The way they view physical objects. Physical objects are posits. Go into the detailed meaning. So that is all what it says. Now, how does we have got the idea of so that's the way he is putting it, whether that is beside the point, this metaphor. But anyway, still attack here is on Frege, who said object. In the same sense, whenever we are going to speak about meaning, we think that meaning is, we don't have to speak about meaning as entities. It makes no sense, because then how do we understand meaning? Or how do we can only speak, we say some linguistic expressions have got the same meaning as others. So it comes down to synonymy. What we are saying is that particularly about analyticity, necessity, we find that analyticity can be defined only in terms of synonymy, and that leads to what analyticity is. Since we cannot understand what analyticity is, it is rejected. This rejection gives rise to holism in place of atomism. We have already seen what atomism was for the classical empiricist. Now here he says, if there is no analytic synthetic distinction, then the truth value of any statement could be revised in the light of experience. Now, if you are going to speak about a complex truth value of the light of experience. Now, why does he say truth value of any statement? See, any statement, in other words, what he is trying to say is that in the world. Now, this situation, this value, we do not want to revise. So, in other words, any statement for the time being. So, in other words, analytical statements are not turn out to be not analytic sometime later. So we can revise the truth value and we can decide what it is. So we are not going to individually verify. So that is in atomism. Atomism presupposes that we are going to individually verify, or we are trying to accept it as true. But the collection of statements, the system is either true or false, to put it in a simple language, by independent of the truth value. In other words, put it in a simple language of sensory experience. So therefore, there is some sort of a non-reductionism. Semantic unit. Semantic unit is what is the most basic unit, meaningful unit in language. So he says it is not words, it is not sentence. For a theory to fit or face up the totality of possible sensory evidence is that the theory is, but the facts like that experience. So for example, he's giving some example, that experience takes a certain course, that our skin is warmed or punctured, that the universe is finite. These kinds of facts makes our statements true. Now, it's true, or our theory is true, or theory is acceptable if it is largely true. In other words, the truth is the only notion that is there. All of the talk about experience as a whole, all of them goes beyond or goes overboard. What we have is the simple idea of being true. I will just read it out and then explain. A satisfactory theory of truth for a language L must entail for every sentence S of L a theorem of the form S is true if and only if P, where S is, and there are a number of sentences. Now, given any sentence, we can say that sentence is true if and only if given fact is there. So, truth. Now, but his idea is there is no intelligible criterion for the differentiating conceptual scheme. So, if conceptual scheme is different from another, and there must be a criterion to differentiate between the two. There must be a criterion to differentiate between the two. But the truth is inseparable. If the truth is we cannot speak about different conceptual scheme. Now, but can we speak about one conceptual scheme then? His answer is no. We cannot. Nor can we say that there is a common scheme and ontology. Now, why he says, as Davidson put it, if we cannot intelligibly say about, he says, objective truth, when you are going to speak about, see, there is a distinction between two kinds of with the conceptual relativity, and truth becomes relative to the scheme. Now, suppose we are going to reject this dogma of scheme content reality, then what happens? Then without the dogma of the scheme and content reality, we would not get this type of relativity, that is relativity of conceptual scheme and rather, or truth relative to conceptual scheme. Rather, we get a different sort of relative, basically objective truth. So truth as relative to language is as objective as presenting before a bird, and bird is a little far away from me. Know it, but we are going to use the color term here. Okay, pacha in the sense of not in the sense of not ripe. Say can't be making a distinction between scheme and content. That distinction, three different versions of or three different theories of truth. That would be the we will be accepting. Let us say we have got a certain set of statements and on skepticism. But as I understand, if you look at actually green, okay, or there is no grass at all. Under both conditions, there is a possibility of error. And this possibility of error is all what is kept the world. So the world is there, and world is there for us to inquire into and explore. That world is there, and there is also an unmediated relation. So it is partly this unmediated relation. Maybe coming back to this question, Davidson is a realist from a philosophical point of view.
Beyond our expectations, actually. I think it's time for us to wind up this session, and we also received some other questions here, and I with patience for listening to all these questions and answering.